Hello and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for fantasy Premier League content for the 2021-22 season. My name is Dan and welcome to a Gameweek 35 episode of Buy, Sell, Keep, Avoid, the series where we have a look at some potential transfer moves that we could make, my kind of recommendations, what I like, what I don't like in terms of transfers this week, and how you can kind of just improve your team. There's not many game weeks left, so every transfer is very, very important, guys. So hopefully you do enjoy this one. If you do, please do leave a like on the video. It massively helps out the channel, and do subscribe as well if you are new. Now, we have got a quick word from a sponsor before we go into this video, and I have to warn you guys, I didn't think this one through. I actually had a haircut after recording this little preview. So yeah, didn't really think that one through, but there we go. Just watch. So guys, a website that I've kind of been working with a little bit recently called Draft Hound has asked me to give their new team builder tool a go. It's basically a tool where you kind of import your team into it and kind of check out to see how good your team is based on several different metrics. So for a bit of fun, I thought I would put in a really spicy differential team and just see how it stacks up. Got to rename that quickly. Put a couple of emojis in there. So yeah, this is the rating Draft Hound have given my team. It's a 60 out of, I believe, 100. So pretty good. There are some weaknesses here, but some of my super differentials like De Bruyne, Havertz, Werner are actually scoring really high. Alonso scoring 79. So they're preferred players. If we go to the fixture difficulty tab, you can see that all of my fixtures in general are pretty easy. So all good fixtures most of my players have here, a couple of bad ones. And over the long run, the fixtures look really good here as well, we can see. So my players have a 61% on average win percentage here. So most of my players are expected to win with the maybe not Matty Cash, but aside from that, everyone's looking pretty likely to win their games. And it's all that based on odds and just to try and see how good a team is based on a whole bunch of different stats. Okay, there's my team at 60 rating. I think that's pretty good for a team that differential. If you want to give that a go and see how your team measures up, the link is in the description. You can go check that out. So guys, with that out of the way, let's have a look at the rules of the video. So buys are players you probably don't have but should consider bringing in. Sells are players you probably have but should consider removing. Keeps are players you might be thinking about removing, but I think you should keep them. And avoids are players that are pretty hyped up right now, but I think they are potential traps that could potentially be avoided. Obviously, always a little bit of a controversy in the avoid section and maybe the keep section as well. So do stay tuned for that. Without further ado, guys, let's have a look at some buys. So our first buy today is Matty Cash. I think we're all going to be eyeing up these Aston Villa players. Norwich at home next, and then we've got a double game week. So back-to-back double game weeks in 36 and 37. First one against Burnley and Liverpool. Second one against Crystal Palace and Burnley. That's looking pretty nice. We're going to want some Aston Villa players, and it's just going to be a case of which ones are the right ones to buy. Now, I don't know if all of you guys are going to agree with this one, but this is kind of where I stand when it comes to Aston Villa players. I know that Aston Villa probably only need one more win, and that secures themselves in the Premier League. They won't be in a relegation scrap anymore. That's probably going to happen against Norwich. And then after that, it's kind of going to be a situation where Aston Villa don't have very much to play for. So there could actually be a little bit of rotation, particularly as their schedule is so busy. Nothing to play for, busy schedule. It's a little bit of a recipe for disaster, particularly as Aston Villa do have a really good youth academy there. They've had some poor results recently, which might be a kind of motivation to give some of their fringe players a little bit of go, give them a chance to play some football, keep that morale up and stuff like that. So that very much could happen. In the attacking positions, for example, there are actually 8 players that kind of could play in, 3 or 4 attacking roles, whereas defenders, there is not actually as much flexibility. There's not as much squad depth in the defensive positions for Aston Villa. So although I'm not against going for some Aston Villa attackers, I do think the defenders are a little bit more safe from rotation in a way. So, if we're talking about fullbacks, for example, we know Luca Digne, he is out for a little while, so maybe you can consider Ashley Young. On the other side of the pitch, we've got Matty Cash, but in terms of backup for a right back, you'd have Young, but he's got to play on the left. You have potentially Callum Chambers. I don't think Callum Chambers has actually played at right back for Aston Villa yet. He's only played at centre back so far this season, so I'm not sure they'll want to utilise him there either. So really, we're in a situation where, although there's quite a lot of scope for rotation in the forward positions, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but there's scope for it. Certainly in the defensive positions, there's far less scope. So if we're looking for a nailed-on player, I would be tempted by Matty Cash. And to be honest, Matty Cash is providing a decent amount of attacking output. He's been kind of unlucky to not have scored a goal over the last few game weeks, to be fair. And I think there is potential for some clean sheets here as well. So Norwich at home, that's always good for a clean sheet, potentially. We've got Burnley there in 36. And in 37, Crystal Palace and Burnley at home. that's potentially 2 clean sheets there, particularly, you know, the way Crystal Palace have been kind of sometimes struggling to score goals recently, you would say, particularly when they're playing away from home. So all in all, I think that if we are going to go for an Aston Villa player, Matty Cash is my favourite one to go for. If you can manage to easily get him into your team, I do prefer him to a Watkins or a Coutinho. Not saying they're bad, but Cash is my favourite buy in terms of the Aston Villa players. Our next buy is Eddie Nketiah. Now, this is a really interesting one. And once again, have we potentially been dragged into another situation where we think we've found the solution to our forward problems? I mean, how many times have we fallen into forward traps before? Is this one going to be different? I don't know, but let's talk about it. I do like Eddie Nketiah a lot. I like the way he has kind of not necessarily nailed himself in the Arsenal team, but he's certainly getting far more minutes than ever before. It's going to be between him and Lacazette, really, who's going to be getting that striker role, that striker position. But Nketiah, since he's come in, he has played very well. And there are contract kind of issues with Lacazette. Lacazette is expected to leave the club. But Nketiah is supposedly going to leave the club in the summer as well. But I think the difference between Lacazette and Nketiah is a genuinely really loves the club. He really loves Arsenal. He's going to give it 100% right the way to the last game, whether he leaves or not. And I do think that Mikel Arteta, from his comments, does still want to keep Nketiah at the club. Whereas Lacazette, it kind of seems like he may actually be on the way out. So Nketiah, I do trust a little bit more in that striker position, and he's been playing very well as well. You guys who have been following Arsenal will know that he has scored a couple of goals recently. He could have had another last game week as well. It could have been another one to add to his list against Manchester United. It wasn't to happen, but you know, on another occasion, maybe it does. He is really cheap. 5.5 million is just an insane price for the Arsenal forward. And with Arsenal, something I really like about Arsenal is they still have so much to play for. They are still battling for the top 4. The top 4 positions are well within Arsenal's reach again. They are 4th right now, and they are going to be looking to get some really good results. Now, one more thing that I should say about Arsenal players this game week, which I think is huge, is that they play West Ham away in game week 35. West Ham team, this West Ham game basically is going to be sandwiched between 2 West Ham Europa League ties. So West Ham are going to be heavily prioritising the Europa League games either side of the Arsenal game, which means in game week 35 in the Premier League, West Ham are probably going to field a pretty weak team. And that's going to be weak even after considering that West Ham right now have no available centre-backs for the Premier League games because Craig Dawson is obviously suspended after his red card last game, and everyone else in the centre-back positions are injured. So it's going to be a real strange makeshift defence in game week 35 for West Ham, and further rotation as well as they prioritise European competition, which could mean that they basically essentially just give up and take the L on this game, in which case our Arsenal players, including Nketiah, could have an absolute wonderful opportunity to get some really good amount of points. So looking good for Arsenal players, looking good for Eddie Nketiah, cheap forward, potentially a solution to some of our bench kind of issues that we want to go into. If you've got a bench boost, for example, you are going to be looking for those cheap forwards. Maybe Nketiah fills that gap there. And, you know, if you're just trying to take money out of the forwards, which I would not blame you at all if you were trying to just go for some cheap forwards at this point, Nketiah, even though he is a little bit risky, it kind of doesn't matter. He's 5.5 million. It's not like you're spending a lot of money on him. So I like him for a buy him. Okay, for our first sell is Chris Wood, and I think this is a bit of an L, or going for Wood was a bit of an L, because it's not that he's a bad player, it's not that he isn't incredibly important to this Newcastle team, it's just that he's not the kind of player that scores goals. He's not the kind of player, in the current system that he's playing in, it's not really the kind of player that is suited to scoring FPL points, and that's what we're looking for at the end of the day, FPL points. In this current Newcastle system, it's just not gonna be happening. Newcastle fans did warn us about this one. Myself and many of you guys probably ignored that. It's okay to say you were wrong on some transfers, and I do believe that Chris Wood was a mistake to buy. I will be looking to remove him from my team. I'm sure a lot of you guys will be thinking a similar thing. It's just not suitable for getting FPL points. And on top of that, oh my word, look at these fixtures. Liverpool away, Manchester City away. Are they both away? I can't remember if they're both away. Liverpool, Manchester City, and then Arsenal. Anyway, I think Arsenal is a home game at least. And so 3 really difficult fixtures for Newcastle there in a row. Arguably 3 of the worst fixtures you can possibly have in the Premier League season. Maybe you'd add in Chelsea there, maybe Spurs as well. But really, really difficult fixtures there. And then obviously we've got Burnley in the last game of the season. Although that's kind of, on the face of it, looks like an easy game. I do wonder even if that Burnley away game could be a really difficult one as well. Just because Burnley, last game of the season, probably still in a relegation battle there, desperate to get points. Whereas Newcastle are very much going to be on the beach. And we've kind of already seen that. We've heard some comments from Eddie Howe as well, that there is going to be a little bit of rotation between now and the end of the season for Newcastle, just to give some players some rest, as they've kind of worked so hard to get themselves out that relegation zone. They're now very, very much safe, but there is going to be a little bit of rotation. We saw that with Chris Wood last game week. He got rotated there. I do think he will get game time, don't get me wrong. I don't think he's out the team permanently or anything like that, but certainly there may be a little bit of rotation there, which is going to make the team as a whole a little bit weaker. Fabian Schär as well, we saw last game week, didn't we? So a little bit of rotation is going to make the team as a whole a little bit weaker. They're probably going to get some slightly worse results as well. Another big factor for Newcastle players, they've got no double game weeks left either this season. So all in all, they just don't seem like the right players to go for right now. So yeah, you'll want to be probably selling those Newcastle assets, and Chris Wood would be pretty high up on that list because of his price. Our next sell is James Maddison. Again, this is a kind of a situation, kind of what I was similarly what I was talking about with West Ham. This game week 35 game is sandwiched between 2 really important European games for Leicester. We know that this European Conference League is Leicester's priority competition right now. That's where they want to put all of their energy into. So if Maddison is going to be, obviously a first team player, and he's going to start the game either side of this game week 35 fixture against Spurs, it means very likely that he is going to get a little bit of rest, a little bit of rotation in 35. So I would predict that Maddison does not, in fact, start in game week 35 at all. So maybe just a 1-pointer for him, maybe even less if he doesn't come in off the bench there. As for game week 36, if Leicester were to progress, again, we could see a little bit of rotation there. 36 and 37. It's quite a busy fixture schedule for Leicester. I could see a little bit of rotation there as well, just to make sure that their players are fit and available, assuming they do get to the final of the competition, which will be absolutely amazing for the team, amazing for the fans. But it's going to come at a little bit of a cost of kind of not prioritising the Premier League at all, which we kind of already know is happening. The situation with Leicester is no different to what I've been saying for a few weeks now. The only safe player in the entire team is Kasper Schmeichel. Everyone else is going to be rotated a little bit, so I'm not really interested in Leicester players at all. Even though they've got a double-double, it's not actually going to feel like a double-double by the time we get past the heavy rotation that is inevitably going to come their way. So guys, yeah, I would be very tempted to sell Maddison's, Barnes's, Iheanacho's, whoever you have, and I know a few of you guys are also thinking about buying Leicester players. I would say all of them are no-goes other than Kasper Schmeichel. He's the only player who I would be comfortable going for. All the others are just so risky, and I think you can do just as good for maybe players who only have 1 double game week but are far more nailed on. Are probably actually better players to go for. So no motivation for Leicester players, really packed schedule, especially with the European competition. We're expecting heavy rotation. They are all sells really, other than obviously Schmeichel. I just don't think we need them. On to some keeps. We are going to go for Saka, one of the most sold players this game week so far. And I know why it is. It's because of that little yellow triangle that you see next to his name with the exclamation point in it. The Dorito of Death is next to Saka's name. And we know what the Dorito of Death does. It sends people into a selling frenzy, because people just see that, they see that symbol and think, oh my god, this player must be seriously injured. They are definitely not going to play now. We have to remove them from our teams. But that is not the situation at all with Saka. So Saka, in fact, his injury that he has, the injury that is listed on the FPL website, is not a new injury. It's actually an injury we didn't know about before. So before the Manchester United game, Saka was reporting, the fact that he wasn't feeling 100% well. There was a little bit of an injury sustained there, but he felt well enough to go and play in that Manchester United game, and he managed to play a decent amount of minutes in that game. Couldn't play the whole game, but he managed managed to play a decent amount of minutes before being taken off just to protect him. And that is the situation. That is it. That was the injury. It already happened. It already occurred a couple of weeks ago, and there was just a little bit of a warning. You know, he wasn't fully fit for the Manchester United game. Now, the time between that Saturday, the early kickoff on the Saturday for that Manchester United game, and the next fixture, which is late on a Sunday, is kind of over 8 days difference. So it's over 8 days for Saka to get himself recovered. He's still training. He's still doing really well. I fully expect him to start against West Ham. You know, obviously things could change. We'll wait for some manager comments. If things have gone worse, then maybe not. But I don't see why that it would get worse. We are talking about an injury that by the time this West Ham game comes along, the injury will have been weeks old, and he has been able to play through it regardless. He's going to want to play this game as well. He's on penalties now, which has just turned out to be an absolute huge dub. And like I was saying about West Ham, heavily rotated and no available centre-backs means that Arsenal could get a decent amount of goals here. And who's going to score them? Well, I mean, you would probably put a little bit of money on saying that Saka is going to be involved in some of these goals. So not only is he a great pick for this game week that you should definitely keep, arguably you should be buying him if you don't have him yet, and arguably you should be captaining him as well, because it really is looking that good for Saka this week, in my opinion anyway. My next keep is Harry Kane, and this is another player who I think is a top captaincy candidate for this game week. Again, I kind of just already spoke about Leicester, but we're expecting heavy rotation in this Leicester team. We also know that that Harry Kane loves playing against Leicester. Like, Spurs fans, you guys will know that Harry Kane, one of his favourite oppositions to play is Leicester Football Club. He just scores so many goals there. Another game that he likes to score a lot of goals in is the game against Arsenal, which is part of the double game week after. So if you look at this in total, you look at the Leicester game that he really likes the look of, the double game week, even though it looks difficult on the face of it, he actually really likes a goal against Arsenal. And then we've got Burnley and Norwich to finish off the season. That just spells goals for Harry Kane. Harry Kane often comes alive at the end of the season as well. He often scores a lot of goals at the end of the season. So actually, it's looking like it's pretty well teed up. I know there's going to be a couple of blanks recently. I know there's been a little bit of disappointment recently with Spurs in general. But believe me, guys, this Leicester fixture is a really good fixture. I will want to be keeping all of my Spurs players. You know, if you've got Son, Kulusevski, Emerson, whoever you've got from Spurs right now, other than maybe Reguilon, who is kind of rotation risk at the moment. Other than that, I would definitely actually be opting to keep my Spurs players for this run of fixtures. I think it actually could be a lot better than you think. And again, we're going back to the idea of which teams, which clubs have a lot to play for still. Spurs definitely do. They will be challenging, doing their utmost to get in the top 4 this season. And Harry Kane's going to be a very big part of that, as is Heung-min Son, as is Dejan Kulusevski as well. So I would be keeping these players for sure, and I would even consider captaining them in what I believe will be a very good fixture against Leicester. And I'll be interested to hear from you guys as well. Are you considering captaining a Spurs player this week? And if not, why not? Because I think they are looking really good for it. Finally, some avoids, and I'm going to start you off with one I actually said to avoid last game week, and I'm going to stick to my guns on this one. I know Bruno Guimaraes sort of scored last game week and got a few points. I don't think that makes him a good pick all of a sudden. I think, honestly, you know, maybe that was going to happen in a slightly easier game there, but you don't pick a player based on one game week, you pick them based on multiple game weeks, and I stick to this opinion. I'm not changing my mind on this one, that over the long run, over the remainder of the season, he can't be a good pick. Love the player, and just because the player is an avoid, it doesn't mean I don't like them as a player. It doesn't mean I don't like them as an FPL asset. It just means that I believe that now is not the right time to own them. And I would say, kind of across all Newcastle players, now is just not the time to own them. I kind of spoke about this already, but I'll go over it very briefly again. The fixtures are terrible. Liverpool, City, Arsenal, and then a potential tough game against Burnley. Potential rotations there. There is no double game weeks whatsoever. Why would you go for a 4.9 million player like Bruno, where you can kind of go for someone else? You know, Gordon, for example, he's looking really hot at the moment. He's got 2 more games than Bruno in the same amount of time. So he plays 6 matches in the time where Bruno Guimaraes plays 4 games. So extra games and a more attacking player, a player who's less likely to get rotated. Everton obviously are scrapping in the relegation zone right now, so they are desperately going to have to play all of their best players and go all out for the remainder of the season. everything in my mind tells me to go for someone like Gordon instead. Or, you know, even Jacob Ramsey, who plays 2 additional games. That is 50% more games. So if you're going for Bruno Jimenez, you're going for a player who not only has much harder fixtures, but actually plays significantly less fixtures than the other options, who are actually cheaper as well. So yeah, make it make sense, guys. Honestly, that is my opinion on that one. I am sticking to it. I would far rather have a Gordon or a Ramsey, who are cheaper players, than go for a cheap Newcastle midfielder right now, to be honest. There we go, guys. I said my piece. And it wouldn't be a buy, sell, keep, avoid video if we weren't going for a super controversial avoid. And that is exactly what we are going for today, guys. Because obviously, Gabby Jesus is the most popular transfer in for this game week so far anyway. So loads of people are going for him. Everyone is going for him right now. And I just don't think it's a good move. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I don't think it is a good move. Obviously, I get why people are going for him. He just got a monster score. But that's just like not the way I like to play FPL. I don't like just seeing, you know, a player gets a massive score last game week. That is not necessarily indication that they're going to score the same again at next game week. Are you seriously expecting 20 points every game for the rest of the season? I am certainly not expecting for that to happen at all. We know that Jesus has only actually started 2 games, I think, since game week 21 or something like that. So in 13, 14 game weeks, he's only started 2 games for Manchester City. He's not even been injured or anything. It's just that he is super rotation risky. He goes out of favour very easily, very quickly. He's not even going to be staying at the club in the summer, so it's not like they're having a look at him or wanting to give him a go. Like he's basically already left the club at this point. He is going to be leaving. So it's a very strange one. There is just so many reasons why he might get rotated and rested between now and the end of the season. They don't need to play him. I don't think they even really consider Jesus as part of the best 11 that they have, and they are going to be wanting to play their best 11 most of the time. We've seen time and time again that no matter how many times Jesus scores in a game, it doesn't mean that, oh, he's now in form, we have to play him. Manchester City have just never utilised him like that. It's definitely not an indication that he's suddenly going to get more game time, which is frustrating for the player, I'm sure, which is part of the reason why I think he possibly wants to leave the club. But anyway, all of that aside, we've got this Leeds away game next, which I think people are kind of looking at the upside and thinking, okay, if Jesus does play in this game, it could go really well. And that's kind of true in a way. If he does play, it could go very well. But we have to remember as well that Leeds now have Phillips back. They now have Calvin Phillips back, which is going to help them with their defence a lot. So I don't know if Leeds are necessarily the terrible Leeds that we saw kind of, maybe a couple of months ago. I don't think they're quite as bad as they were back then. Not saying that Manchester City won't beat them, but I wouldn't necessarily say that punting on Jesus is guaranteed points, even if he does start. That's all I'm going to say, because remember, there's so many attackers at the team. You never know who's going to score a goal. Last week, we thought, Raheem Sterling was probably going to be the one to get a really big score. He blanked, Jesus banged. Who's to say that we go for Jesus this week and, a Mahrez bangs or a Sterling bangs or a KDB bangs? We don't know, and that's the difficulty with Manchester City. Their players are just so expensive. They're going to have a double game week, of course. We don't know where that's going to be, game week 36 or 37, because we still haven't found out. Well, at time of recording, we still haven't found out when this Wolves away game is going to slot in. So there's going to be a double game week there, but that's just, to me, spells even more rotation. So Jesus, super risky, so rotation risk, and I think for 8.5 million, you can actually get a lot better for your money. And I do think we just need to kind of ditch these. I think we're desperate to just find an attacker that's working, and I still truly believe that we just need to take the money out of the attack at this point and invest heavily in our midfields and our defences at the moment. So Jesus, popular around the world, but not popular to me. I'm not feeling this one, guys. Avoid. So, in summary, guys, in general, it's probably going to be time to get rid of our Newcastle and Leicester players that we've probably loaded up on in recent weeks. We probably need to focus on teams with a little bit more to play for. Teams battling for relegation, European places, and challenging for the title are the best players to go for. For that reason, I would really want to keep my Arsenal and Spurs players in particular, especially as they play teams this game week who should, in theory, heavily rotate due to those European games. A quick shout out to Burnley players too, who have improved under under new management and are in a real relegation scrap as well. I wouldn't necessarily buy Burnley players, but I would say, guys, if you do have Burnley players in your roster, I wouldn't sell them at the moment. Villa have Norwich and then a double-double, so that's looking really good, but beware, guys. I'm not saying don't do it, but just be aware of potential rotation as the season starts to come to an end. It could start happening pretty soon for Aston Villa, so just a little bit of warning there. And that is the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Please do leave a like if you enjoyed what you saw today. Do subscribe as well if you're new, of course. Go check out the Draft Hound tool. Honestly, it is really, really good. It's completely free. Just try it out. It's a little bit of fun. So give it a go. Tell me what you think of it, guys. And yeah, aside from that, I'll see you tomorrow for the 100 Experts video. And yeah, I'll see you later, mates. Bye-bye.